All right, you are back live on Facebook.
Well, thank you, everyone. Glad to be back in open session. I appreciate everyone's patience. We're now back in open session. I will turn to Alder Taft to do the reporting out on the 3 items that were in closed session considered separately. Alder Taft.
All right. So the first item to be considered was item 927-21. Subject direct referral communication from Mayor Mason seeking an amendment to the developer incentive agreement with the Main Attraction LLC for the redevelopment of an 80-unit boutique hotel, restaurant, rooftop bar, cafe, banquet facility. Recommendation of the mayor is that the amendment to the developer incentive agreement between the City of Racine and the Main Attraction LLC for the redevelopment of said 80-unit boutique hotel, restaurant, rooftop bar, banquet facility, and meeting rooms in and on the former Zahn's department store property at 500 Main Street along Monument Square be approved, and that the mayor and city clerk be authorized to execute the amendment and all associated documents on behalf of the City of Racine. Fiscal note, city loan to the developer will increase by $1 million. Funds are available in the Intergovernmental Revenue Sharing Fund. Move to approve.
So motion to approve item 097-21. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Alder Pete, I believe. This was discussed in closed session. We can go to a roll call vote when the clerk calls your name. Please vote as you wish.
Alder Coe,
Aye.
Alder Jones,
Aye.
Alder Tate II,
Aye.
Alder Caprillion,
Aye.
Alder Peterson,
Aye.
Alder Horton,
Aye.
Alder West,
Aye.
Alder McCarthy,
Aye.
Alder Pete,
Aye.
Alder Rouse,
Aye.
Alder Perez,
Aye.
Alder Taft,
Aye.
Alder Mi'kmaq.
Aye.
13 ayes.
Motion carries. Moving on to the next item, Alder Taft. Alder Taft, the next item, please.
Sorry, I was already on the other page and didn't unmute. All right, I'm unmuted. Okay, item 928-21, subject direct referral communication sponsored by Mayor Mason seeking an amendment to the tax increment financing agreement with J. Jefferson Company regarding the Horlick Historic District, Belfady Square, at and near 2220 Northwestern Ave. Recommendation is that the amendment to the tax increment financing agreement with J. Jefferson Company regarding the Horlick Historic District at the location as 2220 Northwestern Avenue be approved, and that the mayor and city clerk be authorized and directed to execute the agreement and such related documents necessary to carry the agreement into effect on the city's behalf. Fiscal note, city loan to the developer will increase by $1 million. Funds are available in the Intergovernmental Revenue Sharing Fund and will be repaid by the developer over a 4-year term. Move to approve.
Motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Alder West. Discussed in closed session. When the clerk calls your name, please vote as you wish.
Alder Coe,
Aye.
Alder Jones,
Aye.
Alder Tate II,
Aye.
Alder Caprillion,
Aye.
Alder Peterson,
Aye.
Alder Horton,
Aye.
Alder West,
Aye.
Alder McCarthy,
Aye.
Alder Pete,
Aye.
Alder Rouse,
Aye.
Alder Perez,
Aye.
Alder Taft,
Aye.
Alder Mi'kmaq.
Aye.
13 ayes.
Thank you very much. Then moving on to our final item from closed session, Alder Taft.
Thank you, sir. Item 915-21, communication sponsored by Alder West. Oh, wait, sorry.
Yes.
Yes, yep. On behalf of the city attorney, requesting the city attorney meet with the Finance and Personnel Committee concerning litigation in which the city is involved, specifically WHP Cole versus City of Racine. Recommendation of the Finance and Personnel Committee is to approve the settlement agreement as presented. Fiscal note, funding for the $70,000 settlement will come from tax increment District 14. Move to approve.
So motion to approve the settlement item, seconded by President Tate II. This was discussed in closed session. When the clerk calls your name, please vote as you wish.
Alder Coe,
No.
Alder Jones,
Aye.
Alder Tate II,
Aye.
Alder Caprillion,
Aye.
Alder Peterson,
Aye.
Alder Horton,
Aye.
Alder West,
Aye.
Alder McCarthy,
Aye.
Alder Pete,
Aye.
Alder Rouse,
Aye.
Alder Perez,
Aye.
Alder Taft,
Aye.
Alder Mikma.
Aye.
12 ayes, 1 no.
Thank you very much. Chair Taft, we're now moving on to the remainder of the Finance and Personnel Committee report in open session. Did you have items for separate consideration?
I have 2 items for separate consideration and 1 item that needs a brief clarification. So I don't know what order you want me to do that, but
It is your report. You can take them up in the order that you so choose.
okay. All right. So the first item I'll do for clarification quickly, and if anybody has any further questions or wants to open it up, that's fine. Refers is item 0889-21 regarding the Uptown bid. The amount of money is the same as the agenda states, and we don't actually need to clarify this legally, but just in the interest of transparency, $35,000 of those dollars will be collected from the special assessments, and $11,000 will be from contingency funds. So the amount is the same, the way it works is the same, nothing's changing. But I just wanted to clarify that for folks because there was some question about that. So that's all I have for clarification.
Just to clarify that, it does say on the fiscal note, Alder Taft, that 46,000 will be raised through bid assessments. Do we want
Right.
to change that to 35,000 to accurately reflect what was adopted then in Finance and Personnel?
I was advised that by Attorney Letney that amendment was not necessary, but I'm happy to do that if folks want to do that. So Attorney Letney.
Attorney Letney?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Alder Taft. Yeah, our ordinance simply requires there to be a fiscal note so the Common Council understands the fiscal impact on whatever's happening. The plan itself accurately states $35,000 in special assessments and $11,000 in contingency funds. So the motion of the committee was to approve the plan as presented. I think if you want to change it to say release specifically $35,000, that's okay. But frankly, I think just clarifying the fiscal effect satisfies the requirements of the ordinance.
Okay.
Yes.
At this point then, I guess I'd look to see if anyone wants to make a motion or if that clarification is sufficient.
I would
Seeing no
like to-
motion,
I'm sorry,
Oh,
this is
go ahead.
Alder
Alder
Caprillion. I
Caprillion.
would like to make that motion just for transparency's sake when people look upon it. So the motion
And-
is made to write 35,000 to change that.
right? And we wanted to say 35,000 in assessments and 11,000 from reserves as an amendment, just to clarify.
Yes. Yes,
okay.
Mayor. Please.
Is there a second for Alder Caprilion's motion?
Second.
Actually, you know what? I need to take one step back. We raised this as an item for clarification. What I need Alder Caprillion to do, if you wouldn't mind, is make a motion to approve item 0889-21 with the amended language that you just discussed. Oh, you're muted, Alder Caprillion.
I apologize. I'm going to make a motion for approval with the amendments that we just discussed to clarify the assessments. Thank you.
Thank you. Seconded by Alder Tate, the second. Any further discussion on that item? So we have is item 0889-21, the communication sponsored by Alder Tate regarding the Uptown bid, clarifying the fiscal amount being 35,000 raised through assessments and 11,000 being used through reserves. Any further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, when the clerk calls your name, please vote as you wish on item 889-21 as amended.
Alder Coe,
Aye.
Alder Jones,
Aye.
Alder Tate II,
Aye.
Alder Caprillion,
Aye.
Alder Peterson,
Aye.
Alder Horton,
Aye.
Alder West,
Aye.
Alder McCarthy,
Aye.
Alder Pete,
Aye.
Alder Rouse,
Aye.
Alder Perez,
Aye.
Alder Taft,
Aye.
Alder Meekmouth.
Aye.
13 ayes.
Okay. Alder Taft, back to you for other items for separate consideration.
Okie dokie. What do I want to take up first? Let me just look. I have the item numbers written down. I know which ones they are, but I don't know which order they're in. So hold on one sec. Scrolling. Okay. And all right. So I would like to take up, I had a request to take up item 0916-21 up for separate consideration. So that item is a communication sponsored by Mayor Mason to amend a CDBG funding agreement executed pursuant to Resolution 0325-18. The recommendation of the Finance and Personnel Committee is to authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute an amendment to a CDBG funding agreement between the city of Racine and LSS Housing Gold Medal Lofts LLC pursuant to resolutions as noted, and also resolution number 0032-19. Fiscal note, no changes to the loan terms and repayments are contemplated. So move to approve.
Motion to approve item 0916-21. Is there a second? Seconded by Alder Tate II. Any discussion on this item? Alder Taft, do you want to speak to the motion?
I do not need to speak to the motion at this time. I was going to defer to the person who requested separate consideration.
Okay. The only person up with a hand up right now is Alder Peterson.
Yes, I was just looking for a little background on this. Is this the kind of a heading towards nonprofit status for this property, or?
I will defer your question to Director Bowers and Finance Director Fisher. Mr. Bowers?
Thank you, Mayor. This is an item where the corporation is refinancing out of construction loan into permanent financing. And I believe they changed the organization with the Lutheran Social Services in order to facilitate that change to permanent financing. As to whether or not it could ultimately lead to exemption, it doesn't seem to be the reason for doing it at this point. That was also a concern, and I don't think that that's what's happening, but I don't know if we have any assurances in the document. I don't know if Matt Regic is on. He's familiar with this as well. Assistant Director Regic, if he's on, Mayor, you may want to ask him.
I don't know, Mr. Regic is there. I know, I think Attorney Larson dealt with this question as well. If either of them are available to address that, that would be helpful.
I think Attorney Larson left me. But I would agree with Director Bowers that that's not what's going on here. This doesn't change the underlying relationship that Gold Medal Lofts as an entity generally has with the city. It's just, as Bill says, they're just refinancing after construction.
But to Alder Peterson, the question, this was an agreement that had underlying sort of pilot protection language based on future entities, correct?
It did, and I'm trying to pull that up right now so I can assure I'm telling you directly and honestly, but yes.
I do recall that. I'm just curious. It's still just, it irks me a little bit because I understand you guys protected us and I'm thankful for that. But when these properties, and there are numerous of them throughout the city, I'm not sure if everybody's aware of how many there are that have gone nonprofit, and Unified, Gateway, and the county don't get a sniff. I appreciate you guys protecting us in the deeds. I was just curious if that was the direction we're going. It doesn't sound like it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alder Peterson. I appreciate your vigilance in asking that on all of these deals. Any other discussion on item 09116-21? Alder McCarthy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too appreciate Alderman Peterson's diligence on this, and it's very concerning, honestly. And I think we're hearing that, we think it's okay, and I'm not feeling too good about that. I would prefer that we defer this item, get some more information on it, honestly, based on what I'm hearing from staff here. I'm not hearing anything that tells me we're 100% confident where this is going so far.
I guess I would ask staff to advise if there's any timeliness issue where a deferral would hinder any discussion there. I see Mr. Reddick has his hand raised. Matt, I don't know if you're able to address Alder McCarthy's suggestion or the timing around it.
I am. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Alder McCarthy, Attorney Larson and I have worked actually for several months to verify that that the city's interests are protected here. And we've gone back and forth with the developer and their counsel as well. I would defer to Attorney Letney being able to identify the specific components of the agreement that would protect the city or the city's, I guess, expectation of tax revenue or payment in lieu of taxes if for some reason that is not currently contemplated, the property were to go tax exempt. But it's my understanding that the city is protected. I'm quite confident of that. There are timeliness considerations. The refinancing of the property is expected to occur, I believe, this Thursday. This has been something that we've been trying to, work with in tandem and in good faith with the developer on. We are also encouraging, and trying to maintain the viability of this property to ensure compliance with our federal community development funds that were invested in it as well, which require us to facilitate the I guess, future availability of affordable housing at Gold Meadow Lofts. So in short, I'm quite confident that the city is protected. Attorney Larson and I have done our due diligence in that regard.
Thank you, Mr. Reddick. Attorney Letney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I actually pulled up the development agreement while we were talking. And I'll summarize some and then quote other language. The parties contemplate that the value of the property will increase over time as Gold Meadow Lofts makes improvements to the property as assessed values throughout the city increase. Borrower agrees it shall cause Gold Meadow Lofts to agree not to apply for or seek property tax exemption. In the event Gold Meadow Lofts does obtain a property tax exemption, borrower agrees it shall cause Gold Meadow Lofts to pay to the city an annual payment in lieu of taxes, which shall be equal to an amount the city would have received for city taxes, which shall be calculated on the then current fair market value of the property. So the language is in there.
Thank you.
Thank you. Alder McCarthy, anything else?
No, I appreciate an authoritative reference there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Alder Coe.
Yeah, I feel a little more comfortable with that, but I just want to remind people about Mitchell Wagon loss, what happened there. So I just had some concerns. Thank you.
Yeah, Alder Coe, I think that's the poster child for why we have these protections in our agreements now. Alder Pete.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Attorney Lidney, I think you clarified it, but there is last statement you made is somewhat of an incentive to the developer and managers of the property to encourage them to maintain some market rates. Is that correct?
Well, it encourages them to continue in a for-profit status.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Pete. Any other discussion or questions on item 916-21 regarding Gold Meadow Lofts? Alder Taft, did I see your hand raised?
Yeah, Attorney Letney, just one quick question. So you did read the language there. And so is that language sort of in perpetuity or as long as the current owner owns the property? Like, how does that work? I'm just curious about, like, is there a time limit on that? Or is it like for 30 years would they play pilot, or is it you know, or, you know, is that going to be part of a deal if they sell the property to someone else? I'm not anticipating any of this happening, but I think there's an appetite for elders to understand it. So I just wanted to get your take on that.
Well, the term of this contract runs through the end of 2039. So it at least goes that long. It doesn't run with the land. It's an agreement with the borrower.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Any other questions on item 916-21? Alder Peterson.
Yeah, sorry about that. Just a bit of a follow-up on what Alder Taft just stated. When I've agreed to the agreements that we've had with some of these low-income or assisted housing properties, I was under the understanding that the agreement went with the deed, meaning that it was transferable. So am I to understand at this point then that in 2039, granted, I won't be here, at least not on this board most likely, but in 2039, if it transfers, that becomes null and void. I thought it was my understanding that everything was written into the deed. Same thing with the Haven property, the Horlick property, the 2100 block for the Horlick property. My understanding was it was transferable with the deed. Is that not the way did I misread it as we pass these?
No, these sort of have evolved over time, and that one, in fact, does run with the land it was recorded.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alder Peterson. Other questions on item 0916-21? Alder Taft.
Sorry, I hate to belabor the point. So is this part of the negotiations with the developer? Like, how does it vary from development to development? If Attorney Ledney can shed some light on that, that would be maybe helpful for folks.
Yeah, I mean, I do think just in context, we've tried to make the language as we watch these evolve stronger. And so again, language in a development agreement is one thing, assigning it to the deed, to Alder Peterson's point, is stronger. But I'll let Attorney Ledney speak to some of the legal distinction of it, but it is part of what we've been trying to negotiate is better language to protect taxpayers into perpetuity.
Right. Frankly, the way the mayor put it is exactly the way that I would put it. We've just gotten stronger and tougher over time about it. And we've insisted on that kind of language running with the land. So,
any other discussion on item 0916-21? Any further discussion on 916-21? Seeing no further discussion, when the clerk calls your name, please vote as you wish.
Alder Cole,
Aye.
Alder Jones,
Aye.
Alder Tate II,
Aye.
Alder Caprillion,
Aye.
Alder Peterson,
Aye.
Alder Horton,
Aye.
Alder West,
Aye.
Alder McCarthy,
Aye.
Alder Pete,
Aye.
Alder Rouse,
Aye.
Alder Perez,
Aye.
Alder Taft, Alder Taft,
Sorry, I thought I was unmuted. Aye.
thank you. Alder Mikma,
Aye.
13 ayes.
Motion carries. Now back to Alder Taft for another item for separate consideration. Alder Taft, we're unable to see or hear you.
My word, I just clicked over to read the agenda and this is what happens. I will try again to read the agenda. Hold on one moment, please. Can you still see me?
Yes, we can see and hear you now.
Okay, I don't know what that was about. The
Actually,
next item I have.
we can't see you anymore. I don't know what happened.
Oh my. All right, I'll read it and I'll come back if you can hear me. Okay, so the item is 909-21, communication from Mayor Mason requesting an allocation and expenditure of $28,596,465 in American Rescue Plan Act or ARPA funding for homeownership, neighborhood revitalization, workforce opportunities, community resiliency, sustainability, smart cities, and budget stabilization. Recommendation of the Finance and Personnel Committee is that the request be approved. And let's see, staff has reviewed and confirmed all applicable ARPA rules to verify that all uses are allowable. Fiscal note, total American Rescue Plan Act or ARPA funding allocated is not to exceed $28,596,465. The ARPA funds are currently uncommitted and require no city match. Move to approve.
The motion to approve item 909-21. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Alder Pete. Discussion. Alder Taft, you made the motion. Please proceed.
I'm happy to speak to this motion. I'm sure, there may be other folks who want to speak to it as well. I just think that this is a lot, this allocation of funds contains a lot of the values that we've been sort of working toward as a city. The uses that were listed in the agenda, I don't want to click over again because lose the video, but are all things that are helping the folks that have been hardest hit by the pandemic, which is something that these funds are supposed to be geared toward. And I just want to commend the staff for working diligently and coming up with some really innovative solutions. And we've heard from some folks who would be funded through public comments earlier in the meeting. And so I think this is helping people with education, with neighborhood stabilization, with all kinds of things that we really support as a city. So I just wanted to speak in favor of the motion.
Thank you, Alder Taft. Any other discussion on the item? Alder Pete.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would just sort of like to expand on what Alder Taft commented on. Number one, as I would put it, it's somewhat of a bottom-up or top-down approach. Reallocating the funding from this perspective will cover many of the social concerns as well as economic concerns, which in the long run will benefit the whole city, Specifically, I don't want to reiterate what Alder Taft pointed out, the housing, training, educational opportunities, healthcare opportunities with the new center we're trying to build, and all of these areas that will improve the quality of life for all of our seniors. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Pete. Alder Peterson.
Yes. Go over a few of them, I guess, starting with the $10 million for the the new health center, or the King Center. We've already, I believe we borrowed in the last budget, what, $3.5 million for that? Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and this is 10 more million. What's the final goal? Is the city going to be on the hook for anything else? And is there going to be a cost add-on for running it?
I will defer your question to Mr. Vornholt, but then maybe ask Dottie K. Bowersox to talk about the federal component of a federally qualified health clinic in terms of operations. Mr. Vornholt.
Yeah, so the allocation in this before you tonight is to continue our capital campaign to build out both the health clinic and the community center. We also have been successful in just recently realizing that we are going to successfully get another grant for, in addition to the community center, what's called a safe room, but which also will be used as a gymnasium, but because FEMA can use it as an emergency shelter. So what I'm saying is we're piecing together several components of the capital campaign to build out the center. This $10 million, we're also applying, as you is in tonight's agenda, we're also applying for a health infrastructure grant from the state for $20 million. So that is, kind of getting us 3/4 there. If, obviously if we get that grant. We're seeking other federal funding as well to complete the capital campaign for the clinic and the community center and build out. To the operations, I will defer to the Administrator Bowersox to talk about how funding of the operations and ongoing with partnerships with our healthcare partners and how we are reimbursed by the federal government to run the clinic.
Dottie K, are you still there?
Yes, I am, Mayor, and thank you, and good evening to everyone. Thank you for the question, Alder Peterson. Yes, the FQHC, the Racine Community Health Center, will be able to bill for services. As we go through this process and develop what is called at the federal level a lookalike facility, we would have enhanced billing opportunities for each and every individual that we see. At the same time, our community partners have just been excellent. Ascension, Advocate, Gateway, Molina, the city, the county have all given financial contributions at this point for the operational part of the RCHC. So we have operational funds. We are in the process now of purchasing equipment and supplies. We have a contract with Ascension as far as nurse practitioners. They have donated the medical director's time, Dr. Litza, to us. And we have sufficient funds to become operational at this point. Ascension has been very kind. They have donated $1 million over a 5-year time frame. And then again, support with the county and with the city, and then we will be able to bill.
Alder Peterson?
Okay, so I guess I'm looking for a commitment that the city has done with $13 million, $13.5 million, or I'm just curious where we're at. Is there any type of commitment to saying that 13.5 million is enough? We're going to get the rest elsewhere. And I guess I didn't hear a firm answer as to whether or not there'll be an ongoing cost above and beyond our present operating costs for the city.
Yeah, I mean, Dottie K, could you just clarify the independence of federally qualified health clinics a little bit more specifically for Alder Peterson, please?
Oh, sure. Be delighted. Thank you, Mayor. Yes, lookalikes, FQHC, by federal statute, in order to be either one of those designations, has to have an independent board. They can't be affiliated with any local government, whether it be city or whether it be county. They can also not be affiliated with any healthcare. Now, city, counties, and healthcare can provide support, but they don't have, they are not responsible for the operations and or the financial stability of the facility and the services. That is with the board of directors.
Thank you very much.
And then Alder Peterson, it's certainly the hope that all in, this project's a $51 million project. If we can build a $51 million facility with $3.5 million worth of borrowing against the levy, that seems like a pretty good deal for local taxpayers. That is the goal at this point, is to leverage as much other people's money as possible.
Thank you very much.
Alder McCarthy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate a lot all the programs that you proposed here. But when I first heard about this money, the first thing I thought about was finally, after all mine and Alderman Coe's years on the city council here, we have the opportunity to stabilize our finances a little bit at this point. I was a bit concerned when I saw the proposal. I didn't think the money was enough for that, honestly. But in working with Finance Director Fisher, I want to assure the council and anybody that might be listening as well then, that I'm very comfortable that the stabilization efforts and funds included in here are sufficient and appropriate for the duration of the expenditure period for this money. So good work on Director Fisher's part, and I was quite satisfied with the answers on that. And one thing I was hoping most to come out of this money. So thank you.
Thank you, Alder McCarthy. A good reminder that the first dollars we spent were to stabilize our city finances before we moved on to anything beyond that. Alder Horton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to say that I would be in support, of this this item. I see a lot of things that that's in there that's going to help the community, help the people that live in the city. We're seeing some nice incentives in there for workforce, and I heard a couple of people come on tonight, and I know that we're looking to continue our racing works and getting people into the trade. So I think this is we're heading in the right direction, and I would be in support of this this item.
Thank you, Alder Horton. Alder Tate II.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Also speaking in support of the package, the proposals that we have before us are hitting on a lot of specific issues that we've identified and experienced, and have reports about inequities that exist within the city comparatively, and the ones that we can touch directly. There's a number of dollars that are being allocated to specifically touch those issues. I also want to emphasize that, in several areas, while there's specific allocations to perform a specific duty, there's also dollars that are assigned to generally address an issue. And I certainly want us to be very intentional in engaging the community about how do we go about expending these particular dollars to meet this particular need, whether that's for youth employment or other community-based activities that I think folks have ideas on, and then that we just can say like, well, here's money that we have to specifically address that. How would you like to tap into that, and how can we engage folks? Because I think that's a critical piece of solving any sort of problem. Isn't necessarily to be like, here's the solutions, we're here for you. It's like, no, here's the resources. Now help us, help you in applying those resources in a way that's effective and going to make a difference. So definitely supportive of this, and looking forward to future conversations as we very intentionally engage the community about the aspects that are more flexible in these allocations to do so. So thank you.
Thank you, President Tate. Alder Peterson.
Yes. As far as I see, Racine Works is part of this. We had a motion last year in December, I think it was, for Racine Works to provide us with a 6-month or a biannual report. Have we received any reports on them yet? I believe Alder Taft is, Alder President Tate was the one that made that motion. I don't recall having any reports presented to us.
Yeah, I don't have that on the agenda for tonight, but I can certainly ask the city administrator or the finance director if they know what the status of that item might be.
I can yield to that, actually.
Oh, President Tate.
Yeah, we did. Thank you, Alder Peterson, for the question. We did have at least one check-in with the WRTP Big Step, which was the group that we contracted with to kind of track that stuff. There was at least one check-in regarding that, and I think that every 6 months we probably should be due for another one in the next month or so. But yes, that had occurred. The reason probably it wouldn't have come to council because that would have been a report, so we would have received and filed and wouldn't end up on the council floor for everybody else to see, because it wasn't something to adopt. But there was at least one check-in meeting and updating progress, and there was a lot more progress to be had in regards to that.
Okay, well, I would appreciate it passing that on via email. It doesn't have to come to the council, being that it was passed as a, you understand what I'm saying.
Yes,
Yeah,
I do.
I think
Thank you.
Alder Tate's giving a thumbs up, and I think we can make
We can
sure
move on
that
from there.
City
Okay.
Administrator Vornholt makes sure that everyone gets emailed to copy that. Alder Peterson, you still have the,
Thank you very much. Okay, so what number are we at now as far as 46 million? We spent, I know, at least over 9 now, plus this 28. Where are we at?
I will refer your question to the finance director, Kathleen Fisher.
Thank you, Alder. I believe in Paul's presentation that he sent out, there was a page that talked about the funds that are committed. So the Common Council has already authorized committing about 17.5 million. I apologize, I'm going a little bit off the top of my head. So committing $17.5 million. That doesn't necessarily mean that that is all spent already. It just means that you have authorized the allocation of those funds. They are committed to specific projects. Some are already encumbered. So one of the items was for fire trucks. Those are already encumbered, I will tell you that. But that is what is already committed. This $28 million number that you are looking at tonight would be the rest of that $46 million allocation.
Thank you very much. Okay, and the last one to be a pain on is the student retention loan repayment program. I think kind of getting ahead of the program here. I'm honestly a believer that the federal government's going to do something here. So I think it may be throwing money away ahead of time. 2, I don't like the fact, trying to be consistent, that you're once again treating employees differently, city versus non-city residents. So at this time, I'd like to know if I can separate the question.
You could, an amendment would be appropriate at this time if you wanted to, Alder Peterson, or if you wanted to vote, you could also separate to just vote on that item separately if you so chose.
All right. I will make an amendment to the student repayment program. I think we're getting ahead of ourselves, but so be it. To $150 a month for all city full-time employees versus $200 for a resident and $100 for a non-resident.
The
Should be
motion,
the same dollar, should be the same dollar amount, I would assume. Shouldn't change the dollar amount.
I don't know that that's the case. We have 2/3 of our employees who are not residents and 1/3 who are. I don't know that it's a simple 50-50 split, but I will.
Right, yeah, at this point, you have no idea how many people are even involved. You say 130 to 150, I would think a simple email put out ahead of this would kind of give you a ballpark of where we're at. I'm guessing we're not even going to be anywhere near 130 or 150.
So
Point of order, Mr. Mayor, do we have a second on the motion?
Yep, regardless,
Second.
Alder Peterson's made that motion. Alder Coe has seconded it. Alder Peterson, do you want to continue to speak to your motion any further?
No, it's all right. Thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion? Alder Pete, you had your hand up. I assume that was for the main motion. So at this point, I guess I would say, does anyone else want to speak to the amendment that Alder Peterson has proposed? And City Administrator Vornholt also has his hand up at this point.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to Alder Peterson's question of we're ahead of ourselves and we don't know what's coming from the federal government. Absolutely right. We wanted to, we're recommending many of these things. Just keep in mind, and I want the council to keep in mind, this is a 4-year allocation plan. Some has been encumbered like a fire truck. Yeah, we won't take that back if we get it delivered. But many other things may not be expended, and we still may be coming back to you and saying, okay, well, we didn't, there weren't that many people that needed student loan debt repayment, so we're going to reallocate here and there, and we'll have another priority. That doesn't mean that we can't emphasize and put our priorities out there tonight. That this could make us a very attractive employer for retention and for recruitment, as based on kind of our conversations and surveys of our employees that would make us kind of unique with some of the other things that were unique that we're not as attractive on. So I would just say that just because the federal government hasn't decided, and yeah, they've passed a couple things and 3 things, I think, passing aside debt and relinquishing debt, but it hasn't gotten to the hardcore debt yet. And there's a lot of conversation that they don't have access to negate a lot of debt that's out there. So I think it's still worthy to keep in our package and keep the flexibility, but knowing that, as Alder Tate said, we're going to work with you all along this process as we implement, as we design these programs. But what we want to hear from you tonight is this is important. We think this is a value. We think this is something we want to have in our arsenal, in our toolbox. That's what we're asking for tonight.
Alder McCarthy, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think we're in really just, I'm going to speak against the amendment. I think we're rehashing the conversation we had 2 weeks ago where the vote was 9-5. The majority at that time agreed that incenting employees to live in the city was a great retention as well as recruitment approach. And I don't know that we even need to have this argument over again, honestly. It's more of the same, in my opinion. Great tool, and I'm going to speak against the amendment.
Alder Jones. Alder Jones, you're muted.
Okay, can you hear me now?
We can.
All right, just wanted to know, did the county receive ARPA funds as well as the city?
The county received $38 million in ARPA funds.
Okay, so do we know how they've allocated their money so far? Did they do anything with the student loans?
I know they're in process of doing, like us, they have allocated some funds for some things already, but I don't believe they've completed their process of what they're doing with the remainder of their funds. I've not heard anybody else discuss doing student loans. I do think this would set us apart. Alder Jones, I do believe either Director Fisher or Vicky Selko could speak to the novelty of this as a retention and recruitment tool compared to other jurisdictions, if you like.
Thank you.
Director Fisher or Ms. Selko, do you want to speak to sort of the uniqueness of this potentially?
Sure, I'll speak to it quickly and then Vicky, feel free to chime in. Vicky did a great amount of research on this, and throughout this entire process, we really were trying to focus on new innovative ways to recruit and retain our employees. This is one that would be very unique for a government. We'd be one of the first across the country to participate in this program. This was a program that came out of the CARES Act during the first part of COVID, and many of the private employers have started doing this, but in the public space, not quite as much. I think this is a fantastic, innovative benefit. As you look at other governments right now, we struggle with recruitment. And it's just another way and another benefit that we can provide to employees or those that are looking potentially in working in public service. Vicky, you want to chime in?
Sure. Thank you, Kathleen. I think you covered most of what I would say. The only thing I would add is, yes, Racine doing this, we would be, as far as we know, the first municipality to take this on. And I think the feedback we've seen and from Baker Tilly, who we've talked to about this, and also the research we've seen, is corporations and others are increasingly offering this benefit to their employees and to new hires to recruit them. And this is a very sought after benefit. We are, as you've had recent conversations about our recruitment efforts, we're going to have a lot of new positions and a lot of vacancies to fill. This is the kind of benefit that can set the city of Racine as an employer apart. And you all had a very robust conversation about how we incentivize people to live in the city. As you think about new employees who would be coming here, new people joining our workforce, having benefits like this is a way that we can incentivize people to live in the city when they join our workforce. And I think we would, Alder Peterson, you are certainly right. We don't know how many employees would take this up right away, but we would find that out very quickly, and we hope to be able to launch it in January. If the federal government takes action on this, then it is something that can be adjusted. We can deal with that if it happens. But in the meantime, we have employees to recruit and employees struggling with student loan debt where we could take this innovative step forward and both retain employees struggling with student loan debt and use this as a very powerful recruitment tool.
Thank you.
Alder Jones, great, thank you. Alder Pete, did you want to speak to the amendment?
No, it was back to the original item.
Okay, I'll come back to you then after we go to the amendment. Alder Peterson, did you want to speak to the amendment again?
Yes, just for clarification, I know in the past, you've singled out the represented versus non-represented. Does this go to all employees? I'm assuming it goes to all employees, represented and non-represented.
So I will defer to the city attorney or the city administrator in terms of where this fits in terms of a benefit to be negotiated. Mr. Vonholt?
I'll defer to the city attorney, but my discussions and this would be to only non-represented employees because it would be compensation.
Yeah, this is not the kind of benefit we've offered before, so it's going to be unique. But generally, this would be the kind of things that we have to negotiate.
All right, then the language is not correct. And then at that point, I would speak against it if everybody just doesn't get it. I mean, I understand that the process of negotiations, but I'll guarantee you, if you go and tell them, here, you can have this, they're not going to say, no, we don't want this. If you're
Yeah,
gonna use it as a bargaining chip to take something else away, that doesn't seem appropriate to me. So as written, it says all city employees, full-time employees, doesn't say non-rep or rep.
Well, that's an issue.
So I guess I'll vote for it as it's, as stated. All full-time city employees. We'll just leave it as such.
Are you withdrawing your amendment, Alder Peterson?
Not the $150 one, but as far as trying to change any language other than that, I'm all for the full-time city employees. I'm all for that.
Further discussion on the amendment itself. Alder Taft?
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate, we've had some pretty robust discussion about around the issue of incentivizing folks to live here. And I just want to sort of amplify and reiterate what Ms. Selko and what Alder McCarthy have said about, we all sort of have agreed that, especially for new employees, this is something that we want to do to use an incentive, incentivize folks to live in the city. And we want to extend it to folks that are currently, we already voted to extend it to folks that are currently employed. So I think this is a really innovative way to recruit and retain employees. And I fully support it as written. And I think the language would probably, even though it says all employees, I think if something needs to be negotiated, that falls under that anyway. So I don't think there's a need to amend it, but I just think the understanding is though that we have to negotiate it with some groups just as part of compensation. So I'll be supporting, or I will vote against the amendment.
Any further discussion on the amendment? Alder, take the second.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah. I mean, not to belabor the point, but we want folks to live in the city. I don't know what to, so everything that we can do, because we can't require people to live in the city. So it's like, okay, we're going to introduce new benefits. If you live here, there's more for you. And that's fine if you choose not to. And I think it certainly makes sense going forward, because I think everybody's agreed we want to incentivize people to live in the city. So certainly as a recruitment tool, having a differential between, well, if you want to work here, there's going to be a benefit that you wouldn't find anywhere else, period, of this allocation. But if you also live here, there's more of that benefit. And the same goes for current employees. Like there's a new benefit for everybody. But if you live here, it's a greater benefit. So I'm not sure, how it keeps getting wrapped up. Like there's some sort of, division happening here. Like there's a reality, like there's a border where our dollars get maximized when they circulate through within our own border. That's just the velocity of money. When you're operating within a singular economy, and we want to make sure that the money that's being, distributed from this government, has a greater chance to circulate through our local economy. And that means for employees that live here, there's a higher likelihood of those same dollars are going to work through those same neighborhoods, and then are ultimately going to work their way back to the city through tax revenue, through other revenues. So it circulates in a way that creates this virtuous cycle. On the flip side, every dollar that we send outside of our borders is a dollar that's never coming back. And that doesn't mean that employees who don't live here don't warrant this benefit, because obviously they do. And we want them to continue to work here regardless of where they live and benefit from student loan forgiveness. I wish I had some student loan forgiveness. Actually, I'm working through the new program, the PSLF, to see if I can get that. But either way, I'm going to speak against this particular amendment because I do think it's important as a city that we continue to have processes in place that demonstrate how intentional we are in desiring people who work here to also live here, and to encourage people who are thinking about working here in the process of accepting that job. If you don't currently live here, you're like, well, if I'm going to work for the city, there's an additional $100 towards my student loan forgiveness. There's an additional benefit towards my family's HSA. There's an additional benefit. Like all of these things ultimately create a package that say like, wow, if I'm going to choose to work for the city, there's some serious benefits to living in the city as opposed to not, that I don't want to necessarily miss out on. That's what this is about. And I'm kind of confused as to why we would not want to do that. So, I'm certainly in support of the overall vision. I'm opposed to this particular amendment because I do think it's important to have that distinction, because that distinction is what ultimately might tip someone's decision-making from, I'm going to live in Mount Pleasant or Caledonia, to actually, no, I'm going to live in the city. And that's important to us. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no further discussion on Alder Peterson's amendment, when the clerk calls your name, please vote as you wish.
Alder Coe,
I'm sorry, could I hear the amendment one more time? I apologize.
Can the clerk restate the amendment?
if I have this correct, please correct me if I'm wrong. The amendment is for the student repayment program to be for, to go to 150 to all full-time staff. Is that correct?
Alder Peterson is nodding yes, so that is accurately reflecting the intent of his amendment. Alder Coe, your vote is first.
All right. Aye.
Alder Jones,
No.
Alder Tate the second,
No.
Alder Caprillion,
Aye.
Alder Peterson,
Aye.
Alder Horton,
Aye.
Alder West,
No.
Alder McCarthy,
No.
Alder Pete,
No.
Alder Rouse,
No.
Alder Perez,
Aye.
Alder Taft,
No.
Alder Mikma.
No.
Five ayes, 8 noes.
The amendment fails. We're now back to the main motion. Alder Pete, the floor is yours.
Yes, going back to the Recovery Act funding, the $28 million, seems like it's been a while. But I had two concerns or questions. Number one, is there any accountability for the various departments, if you will, that will be dispersing those funds? And number two, do we have any, I could say vision, but what I really mean is, do we have any expected outcomes? For example, do we have some type of matrix of, are we looking at a percentage of increase in home ownership or reduction in other areas, whether it's criminal or what have you, in increasing the number of people in the apprenticeship programs, reducing unemployment, transition? I think you understand what I'm asking. Do we have any accountability?
Right. I think you're asking, like, what are the metrics and what are the measurements
What
of
exactly?
the dollars?
What's
Right.
data set? What type of metrics are we looking at
Sure.
here?
I'm going to ask Ms. Selko to comment on some of the metrics and evaluations that are built into pieces of this program. And I just also remind the council, so if we were to do a contract on say the student loan items or a contract with a nonprofit to do one of the things that are listed here, that will come back to the council for your approval. So I just want to make sure everybody understands, like, this is not the last time you will see these funds. When they're encumbered through a contract or some other purpose, you'll get the opportunity to scrutinize that in those more specific cases moving forward. But I did want Ms. Selko to speak to some of the evaluation measures that we're envisioning.
Sure. Thank you, Alder Pete, for that question. I really appreciate it. We spend a good amount of time talking about both accountability and outcomes for these programs and wanting to ensure both and to be thoughtful about both and intentional. You'll see in the memo that was submitted with all of this, detailing all these plans, that both for the workforce training, pre-apprenticeship training program, and our efforts around high school degree attainment, we have a goal of providing scholarships to support adult city residents in going through both of those. And we have a goal for each of them of 250 adult city residents in attaining their high school equivalency or high school diploma credential through this effort, and 250 city adults going through pre-apprenticeship training. Both of those would represent significant increases to what those programs are graduating right now in terms of how many city residents are going through both of those. And we certainly are going to be building in measures around equity for those programs to ensure we are reaching city residents in proportion to their need in our community. You'll note for both of those as well that we also are envisioning small pieces of that funding to go to Higher Expectations for Racine County to help us evaluate these efforts so that we can actually from the outset set up very strong accountability measures and outcome measures, and then be working on our way to ensure we're making progress towards meeting those goals. So we have considered that and built in, it'll be small contracts there, but to at least help us design evaluation and make sure that's thoughtful. Similarly, for the Financial Empowerment Center, you'll see some of the recent outcomes that that service has already achieved. Those outcomes are available to be shared on a real-time basis with alders or with members of the public. And we certainly have goals there of serving up to 400 city residents a year with that program. And we're just about to finish our first year with the Financial Empowerment Center, and certainly want to put in place some measures as well of how many people we'd like to go from receiving that service to becoming homeowners or to reducing certain amounts of debt and improving credit by certain metrics. We put quite a bit of that in the memo, and I'd be happy to talk with you more after this as well. And as we progress with implementing all of these, please know we are thinking very seriously about accountability and outcomes for all of these efforts.
Thank you very much. Well put.
Thank you, Alder Pete. Alder Horton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick question. I don't know who it would go to. I just wanted to say, with all the things that are here that we are doing for the community, is this something that as we go along that is going to be posted for the public to see where we actually spent those dollars? Because I think it's important that getting 46 or whatever $1 million in from the American Rescue Plan, that the public know that we reinvested that back into the community.
Alder Horton, it's an excellent point. I think we're going to need to display not only what we have done looking back, but I think there's been much discussion on this council and allocations made already to make sure we're doing more to outreach into the community, to make sure that the community broadly knows that these are additional resources that are available to address equity and inclusion in our community. So I think we've got to do both. I think we've got to make sure we're reporting out what we've done, but also forward looking, making sure that the community is broadly aware of the benefits that this could accrue should you all adopt it here tonight.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Alder Rouse.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Mason. I just wanted to point out that I'm comfortable with these types of measures just because one of our biggest issues right now is a large amount of resources, but a lack of connectivity with the people who desperately need them the most. So anything that can help bridge that gap, we're going to get exponential returns if we can start getting people to engage in these services that we have, because there is a lot out there and there's a lot of people that could benefit. So I'm looking forward to dedicated personnel, staff, directives, job descriptions, like we talked about with the equity position earlier, that will help utilize these. And thank you, Sam Pete, for asking that. That's right up my alley. I will be looking forward to those metrics, just because it is important. We all live here. So it's important for us that these things that we're doing do succeed. And if they don't, we adapt them.
Absolutely. Alder Tate II.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One of my questions that obviously I wasn't able to kind of speak to this during a committee, but it was touched on earlier that the county got 38 million. To what extent is what we're proposing in tandem with the dollars that they're going to be using? Because I would hate for us to be either duplicating services or knowing that the county's allocation ultimately was derived formulaically from the poverty that exists within this community, that their efforts wouldn't be dovetailing into ours as well. So to what extent is what we're proposing or have what we propose also been operated with the county in terms of what they're going to do and how they're going to use their allocations to maximize the effort and impact of these dollars?
I would, just point out the county gets allocations, Racine Unified gets allocations, Gateway Technical College gets allocations. I think after moving forward tonight, I think it lets us lay out a baseline. And I would certainly say whether it's ARPA dollars that have gone to the state of Wisconsin or to other jurisdictions locally, we're very eager to leverage our ARPA dollars with additional dollars, be they ARPA dollars or otherwise, to try to get the work that we need to get done around some of our priorities. But I think everybody's waiting to see who's going to go first to lay out goals and guidelines. What I think is compelling about what's before us is it builds off the work that we did around our CDBG advisory committee goals around the work that we want to do to really target equity in areas where we can do the most good for the most people. So it certainly, I think, gives us a stronger position with those other entities to say, this is what we're in for. We would like you to match that as well. And I guess I would just ask Paul or Vicky to comment on how we're already using some of the discussions that we've had around ARPA to try to leverage other state funding or federal funding that's out there as we've been applying for grants. Paul, could you comment on that?
Before you comment on that, I did
sure.
want to add, since you did mention the school district, I mean, we have a lot of funds allocated for youth-oriented services as well. So in addition to my question about what the county's allocation is, are we and how are we coordinating with the school district as well to make sure that either what they're doing is going to dovetail into what we're doing, or what we're doing will dovetail into what they have anticipated to do?
Paul?
Yeah, so excellent, all excellent questions. I mean, I think we've talked about this since the beginning of these allocations, right? To the best of our ability, we first want to spend everybody else's money before we spend ours. So that means we go after state and federal ARPA funds to the best of our ability. We leverage the investments that we're making to go match what grant opportunities are out there. And then we continue to have discussions with the county, with the school district, where can we collaborate? And don't leave out Parkside and Tech. Higher education got ARPA funds as well. So we continue to have discussions, and it's fascinating as these grant opportunities and these other funding sources come out, because now they're kind of engaging all of us to come to the table of how can we partner on a workforce grant? How can we partner on a neighborhood innovation grant? Now we're going to partner maybe on a healthcare infrastructure grant. So those discussions are continuing, but to the mayor's point, everybody's got their allocation. They're kind of deciding amongst their legislative bodies and their chief executives of where they want to allocate them. And then we continue to discuss, well, where can we collaborate? I will say that on our housing initiatives, we do have good conversations with the county. I think we have a good program on land banking, on the in-rem properties and the county's role in that. I am hopeful that the county is going to allocate funds in that program that will supplement ours. But to the mayor's point, we needed to lead, show where our commitment is, and then we're hoping that the county will see that and will come in and play their part as well. And I think it's just sort of that's how it's going to go. I only know what the county. I mean, Alder Kapralian is here. She has the dual capacity. Maybe she has more insight than I do. I only know what the county did through the Racine Journal-Times of their first allocation. So I know what they spent their early dollars on. But to Racine Unified, again, we continue to talk to them, and I think there's a lot of collaboration. They are cooperating with us on a lot of workforce stuff, and we continue to talk about, their building campaign that may be coming up. Obviously, they're in a litigation. But there could be huge opportunities in workforce and construction trades and things there that mirror us. But so I don't have the exact answer for you, Alder Tate, but I just continue to tell you that we continue to talk to all the partners because we all want to leverage our dollars to make them go the furthest they can.
Mr. Powell?
You're muted, Shannon.
Sorry, I just want to piggyback on that. I mean, Vicki and I have weekly meetings with the county. We sort of briefed the county this week on what our ARPA allocation is going to be. I mean, they said they're a little bit farther behind on us, and they're going through their committee process right now. We also meet weekly with the school district on a variety of subjects. So we're always looking for ways to partner, whether it's using ARPA or other ways.
President Tate, the floor is still yours.
That's all I had. I just want to kind of close out with saying, like, please, let's be intentional. And if need be, perhaps we need to be talking more so with our counterparts on those other legislative bodies.
So I would just echo President Tate's point. Each and every one of you co-represent constituents with a county board supervisor I would strongly encourage, unless you're Alder Caprillion, in which case she can talk to herself, but everyone else has someone that they can reach out to who's a county board supervisor. It would be a great opportunity for you to reach out to them and begin to have these discussions. We certainly do at the executive branch level, but I think it'd be great to see that reinforced at the legislative branch as well. Alder Caprillion.
Thank you. Just because it's been asked a few times, I will go ahead and add a little bit of clarity. At the county, they are choosing now with the dollars that have not been spent. So some of the funds, they are creating like a proposal app, if you will, that is allowing those who have some ideas on how that should be spent to go ahead, and submit it. It's a certain process. It's quite a lengthy one that they have created, and there is a committee too that will be reviewing those, and it'll be open for quite some time. So they're not looking to propose all their money spent immediately right now. They are allowing it to be over a period of time because they do not foresee how this pandemic may still affect the community, and where that money might be able to be better suited may still yet be to come. So it's a proposal process right now.
Thank you, Alder Caprillion, for that insight. Any further discussion on the motion itself? Item 909-21, the proposed ARPA plan before us this evening. Seeing no further discussion on the item, when the clerk calls your name, please vote as you wish.
Alder Coe,
Aye.
Alder Jones,
Aye.
Alder Tate II,
Aye.
Alder Caprillion,
Aye.
Alder Peterson,
Aye.
Alder Horton,
Aye.
Alder West,
Aye.
Alder McCarthy,
Aye.
Alder Pete,
Aye.
Alder Rouse,
Aye.
Alder Perez,
Aye.
Alder Taft,
Aye.
Alder Mi'kmaq.
Aye.
13 ayes.
Thank you very much, everyone. Alder Taft, did you have any other items for separate consideration?
I received no such requests.
Seeing no further requests for separate consideration, without objection, I will move the remainder of the items from the Finance and Personnel Committee report onto the consent agenda. We'll then move on to Public Works and Services. Alder Jones, did you have any items for separate consideration?
I have received no such requests.
Then barring any objections, we will place those items on the consent agenda. Moving on then to Public Safety and Licensing. Alder Coe, do you have any items for separate consideration?
Yes, all of them. No, I'm kidding. No, none.
Okay, then without objection, I will.
Question?
Oh,
Question.
Alder Tate II.
Yes, might be the same question as Alder Taft, but did have a question for item 0905-21. And I think Chief Robinson was on with us, but just for somebody to explain what a humane officer is.
I'm told it's the fancy name for a dog catcher.
That would be accurate.
Oh,
That's exactly it.
okay. It's not a fancy name. It's a good name.
It's a more humane
contemporary name. A more
Yeah,
contemporary name
All right.
for
More
a position
humane.
that was previously described as dog catcher.
More humane.
Yeah. And they also write out tickets too, parking tickets.
Thank you for that clarification. No further objections.
That's inhumane.
That was
Okay.
also my question. Just a clarification. What is?
Any other question on the humane officers? Seeing none, those will remain on the consent agenda. We can then move to Public Safety and Licensing, where I believe there is no current request for separate consideration on that agenda. Without objection, I will place the items on Public Safety and Licensing onto the consent agenda. We will then move on to the Transit Commission report by Alder Jones. Before we do, this may look familiar to some of you, but if I could just ask the city attorney to describe why we're reviewing the transit items again this meeting.
It's really because the resolutions didn't get put on the agenda last week. So the resolutions need to be approved.
So if people would like those considered separately, now would be the time to ask. But barring any request for separate consideration on those items, I will place Alder Tate the second.
Just, is Alder Young here to, or excuse me, Transit Manager Young here to explain himself as to why these weren't on the agenda last time? I think we need an explanation from that new manager. This is entirely unacceptable.
Point of order.
Alder Young, would you like to speak to
Former
President Tate's, I'm sorry, Transit Manager Young, see, it's contagious. Would you like to speak to President Tate's question?
I think the city attorney addressed the president's concern.
Passing the buck.
We'll allow it this time.
All right. Then without any other objections, we will place these items on the consent agenda. That brings us to the consent agenda. At this time, Alder Tate, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
The motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. If everyone could briefly unmute themselves. All those in favor of the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The consent agenda passes. This moves us on now to announcements. Just as a reminder, announcements are limited to recognition of city residents and employees, memorials, and non-political community events. Discussion of matters related to governmental business is prohibited at this point. Do people have announcements they would like to make? Any announcements for this evening?
I do. It's Alder Caprillion.
Alder Caprillion, please proceed.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to take this time and this opportunity to let the alders and the public know that if they have a high school student or know of a high school student who is interested in getting in their feet wet into government and wanting to get involved at a deeper level with the municipality, we have what's called a Youth in Governance program at the county that's open for nomination right now. Any adult can nominate them. So you can just go on the county's website to get that information. I bring that up here just because you are out in the community. There was one point, and maybe it could be reconsidered, that I ran a junior mentoring program on the city council, and maybe Alder McCarthy might be the only one on who may recall that, but it's a very valuable program that is at the county. It runs through a whole, not a one-year term for a youth, but if you need any more information, please just look that up at the county's website or don't hesitate contacting me. The nomination process will end on December 17th, and it's a very competitive process, just so you know. Thanks.
Thank you, Alder Caprillion, for that announcement. Other announcements? Seeing no further announcements, Alder West, at this time, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Is there a second? Seconded by Alder Tate the second. All those in favor of adjournment, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, everyone. We are adjourned. Great work, everyone. Stay safe.